Welcome to the Learning and Skills Insight. My name is Gary Cookson, and I'm here today to chair all the sessions today and to speak on this stage tomorrow. Hope you're having a great conference so far. The next session we're going to do today is from Steve Smith. Steve works at Sterling and has one of the best job titles I've ever seen, the International President. I don't know who he reports to, but it's got to be somebody big after that. Over to Steve.
Thank you so much. It's one of the pros of working for an American company is you get to steal some of their titles every now and then. When my role expanded about 3 months ago, and my kids were like, "You're what?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm the president." It really isn't as glamorous as it sounds. Essentially, I lead the business for Sterling from everything outside of the Americas. So EMEA, APAC. It's really great that I can be here with you today. We love coming to this event. We've been here for the last few years. It feels like it's bouncing back this year as well. So thank you for coming, and thanks for coming to this session. We're going to spend a bit of time thinking about 3 steps to happier candidates that start and stay longer. And when we break that down, we're going to just spend a minute thinking about how the world of work has changed, and then some of the considerations we need as we're seeking to bring the best talent into our organizations. Why do I have an opinion on this? Well, so Sterling exists to provide the foundation of trust and safety that organizations like yours need to create the great environments for their most essential resource, and that's always people. We believe everyone has the right to feel safe, and what that means is that we provide services that enable you to make good hiring decisions. It's about trust, it's about safety, it's about background checks, but that sounds less fun, right? So we're going to spend a bit of time today just kind of reimagining our workplaces and our hiring processes after all of the change that we've experienced together over the last few years. And I wonder, question before we start, and you don't need to answer, but just to think about, like, why are you here? Are you here today because it's great to get out, it's great to network? Yeah. Are you here because there's a pressing need in your organization and you need to work something out? I've just walked around this exhibition and there's so much, right? Like, you could get lost in here thinking about how to use some of the services from providers here to help move your business forward as we reimagine work together. Over the last couple of years, there's been this real change in how we work, right? And some of us will be very aware of the Great Resignation, but prior to that, we had safety first, right? Beginning of 2020, we made decisions that protected people first and foremost. And that changed the way that we relate to one another, the way we connect with our work. And then perhaps as HR and talent professionals, you started thinking about furloughs and scale downs. And then suddenly it was like, scale up. And then maybe it was scale back down. And then we've got this Great Resignation, and so we're now thinking, how do we keep the people that we've got, as well as then go and find these other people to help us scale up, because we're still scaling up. And I think we're now at this place where everyone's just taking a minute to reimagine. And I think that's good, and I think that's right, and really that's the push behind everything that I would love to say today is, let's not just carry on in the way that things have always been. How can we reimagine the hiring and onboarding process in the context of where we are today, especially as perhaps we've got our eyes on 2023 and economic uncertainty and perhaps the need for us to scale back down and then be ready to scale back up again. If there's one thing constant in life, it's change, right? And I think in the talent and HR world, we've really seen that and felt it over the last few years. So what I'd love to do is not just tell you stories, but use data. So we actually put together a report called Hiring Reimagined over the course of last year. And our reports normally talk to businesses and HR professionals like yourselves, and we ask questions about where they're thinking about their hiring processes and their background checks for the coming year. Which locations are they thinking they might expand to? What services might they do? This year, we included candidates. So we actually surveyed, so we did 2 surveys, one for clients, one for candidates. We went 13 countries, 16 industries. We talked to 1,208 HR professionals and over 3,500 recent job seekers. They will have been through a hiring process in the last 6 to 12 months. And really the goal of this was, okay, what's really driving the hiring and background screening challenges that we've got today? What challenges do people have? And what do we really understand about the candidate experience? We use candidate experience a lot in our vernacular. We want to improve it. But how close are we to the reality of the candidate experience? Or is it just assumptions that we make along the way? What does the future hold for screening and hiring practices? And where are the opportunities? Where do they really, truly exist for us to make things better and reimagine as we go forward together as well? So a few stats as we get started before we really start thinking about the ways to really drive happier candidates that stay longer. When we asked about hiring challenges, you may or may not be surprised to see that 50% of employers said at the time they could not find enough qualified candidates. Perhaps as we head into 2023, that might change slightly. It might revert back a little bit. But at the time of asking, just coming out of the Great Resignation, 50% of employers finding candidates to do the job well was the most difficult thing. And 40% said actually the most difficult thing is competing with new ways of working. So suddenly it's important whether you're a virtual first organization, whether you're hybrid. It's important whether you're contingent. It's important whether I can do gig work on a platform at my leisure that pays me just as well as being locked into a routine in a corporate, right? So all of these options out there for candidates have changed the dynamics and are presenting new challenges for us. So then we said, well, what are you hoping to do? What are you going to do about it? Where are you investing? 49% said, I'm going to use technology, and it's going to be about simplifying experiences. 40% says, I'm going to use technology, but it's going to be about automating process. And a lot of our customers are saying the same thing, and maybe you're sitting here today, and that's why you've come, is you're looking for ways to automate process. I need to do more with less. How do I do that? 36% said, I want to integrate things together. We have a lot of customers come to us and say, you are a screening provider, you're like the worst part of the hiring and onboarding process, everyone hates it, can we somehow merge it in? Can we keep the brand messaging going all the way through? So there's this real drive towards integrate wherever possible. All those tools, all the different things you can use to reimagine and innovate, bring them together into one experience. And the candidates said, believe it or not, it's actually 71% of candidates have thought about or actually pulled out of a recent hiring process. I wonder if that's your experience as well. Have you seen people dropping out, maybe early on, maybe late on? And the reasons they state for that is the whole process was just taking too long. The hiring process was just too complicated. There were too many touch points, which is this drive for integration. And I had a real problem with the background check. That's not uncommon. It's designed to create friction, but how we do that within the process is really important, and it really affects whether candidates move through that process and come on board and start with you. So there's some context. There's some of the challenges that maybe you feel. Here are just kind of 3 tips. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's really to start the conversation. We can have some questions after these 3 tips, and you're very welcome to come and talk to us at our stand just down there at any point over the next couple of days. The first thing is employer proposition. Why is this important? It's important because everything has changed, right? Salary, financials, all of those things used to be the first thing that would really drive whether someone says yes or no. The benefits package around that was really important. But now it's much broader. The way that people work really needs to fit with how they want to live. And so there are so many more options for people to flex their work around how they want to live. So lifestyle choices as part of your employer brand proposition is really important to be thinking through. It's wider than just the financial or compensation package. It's more about when can I take time off? How much time off can I take? Can I work at home? Can I choose to be in the office all the time? Can I choose to be in the office none of the time? What about when I want to connect with people? How do you do that? Sterling went virtual first through the pandemic. We made that decision to remain a virtual organization. And so one of our big investment areas, and something we talk about during the hiring process, is this is how we connect. This is how we do work together. It's how it's deeply embedded in our culture that we value people, and this is what it looks like when you work for us. Because it's one thing to say, hey, you can work at home as much as you want, but after a period of time, people feel isolated. They feel siloed. It's hard to be productive. And so giving the options for people to work is really important. But you can't give so many options that people don't really know where they fit. So making a good, conscious decision about how you work and what that employer value proposition looks like for people coming to look through the window of your organization during the hiring process, and making that consistent through the conversations you have with them and making it real life when they start. Those things are really important. We hosted a panel meeting at Sterling yesterday across most of the time zones. We just about managed it, and we had over 700 people just come on, and all we were doing was sharing stories. So I was on the panel, there were a couple of other leaders at Sterling. We were just talking about what it means to connect with one another, how that's changed, and what's important about it. And just the sheer, we'd never normally have that many people come to those sessions, and I thought, people are starved. They're really starved, and they want to understand how virtual working post-pandemic looks and feels. So the lifestyle element of what we offer our candidates is really, really important. Then you've got all your perks. Like, there's loads of providers here that can help you understand what perks and how to offer them to candidates coming through. And then the other thing is progression. Okay, we went through this time where people kind of moved around really quickly. And also there was a mindset of moving on to progress now, because the pandemic meant that a lot of people's employment changed. And so we became really adaptable to moving on to new things. And so as we seek to retain and develop talent, actually providing clear career progression opportunities is absolutely critical. Showing that our businesses are growing, showing opportunities for people in the future, not just 10 minutes away, but also 10 years away. Where's my path? What can I do? Who can I network with? Who's going to mentor me in this organization? Having those things available, thought through, mapped out as a framework that you can actually use in your hiring process to attract applicants all the way through. That's so important. So be thinking about your employer value proposition. Also think about how you can speed the process up. Candidates said it was taking too long, right? And that's because there's so many things we've got to do at various points of bringing people into the organization. How can you speed it up? Well, I think setting clear communication, expectations around the process, how long things are going to take, really kind of concierge style, holding people's hands and guiding them through. If you want this person to join, let's invest the time in those early conversations. Be clear, be concise, be consistent. Try avoid asking for the same information multiple times. That's where integration comes in as well. As a screening provider, there's information we will need from candidates in order to complete our part of your process. And if you've taken it early on in the process, why don't we share it? Why don't we use it together? Rather than ask that candidate and put the pressure on them to keep going through the same steps. The other thing is, people will do it on the fly, make it optimized for mobile wherever you can. That feels pretty standard these days, but if you're not yet at that point, there are so many opportunities to get there really quickly. And leveraging technology, thinking about integrations, thinking about how to automate your processes, and thinking about partnering externally with organizations like Sterling, like so many others here, that can add value to the hiring process as well. That stat is astonishing, right? 71% of candidates either dropped out or considered dropping out. And so if you catch them on the right day when they're just starting to think, oh, maybe this is just meh, you get them back. But it's about the regular touch points rather than leaving people a long time. That's when you lose them. We're really focused on this part of speeding things up and reducing friction for candidates. In our strategy statement for the next 3 years, one of the standout points is seamless workflows. Background screening has been so fragmented for such a long time. It's fragmented if you're screening here in the UK, let alone if you start screening people in other countries or with international backgrounds. It gets even harder. And so one of our mission statements really for ourselves internally now is find all the points of friction and eliminate them. And there are lots of ways that that's possible. Digital identity is now possible for a lot of screening in the UK. We can leverage it to speed up and make more effective the criminal record checking process, the right to work process. It also gives us an opportunity to think about, okay, what does a digital ecosystem look like? The UK is kind of ahead. We're on the front foot at the moment. How can we keep that momentum going whereby employment verifications can be looped into this digital ecosystem? What else can we give to candidates that they might be able to hold and share? This morning, Sterling announced a massive new partnership. It's really exciting with a digital identity provider where we're actually going directly into that phase of working. Like the future that I've been dreaming about for a few years is now. And we need to make it happen where we're talking about portable identity that you can then attach like different parts of the screening too, so that when someone comes to go through a hiring workflow with you, they just go, there you go, Sterling, there's my verified background. How great if we could get to pre-verified status for the majority of our candidates over the next 5 years. It would be so cool. And the technology is there, the legislation is there. It's now just about bringing it together, creating opportunities and reimagining together. And third, finally, onboarding. It doesn't stop when you get the yes. Then it goes to the background check. You've got all the friction there. Then they start. Did what you say about your company, about your culture, about your teams, about the opportunities to live and work and be part of your organization, was it true? Like, is it part of their experience? How do we seamlessly shift from candidate experience to employee experience? Those two things have to be wedded. They can't be siloed. We can't have talent saying, hey, this is how great we are, this is what it feels like to be here, and employee experience being like, hey, we think we should do it this way instead. And so really reducing the opportunity for people to feel like they've fallen down a hole between those two pillars is critical to onboarding. And embedding the company culture, weaving that into new starter training, giving people the opportunity to meet a broad set of people cross-functionally, especially if you're in a virtual environment or a hybrid environment, really finding ways to connect people more broadly than just their initial team or their work is really critical as part of the onboarding process. And getting the practical things right, making those intro calls, making sure that the technology works on day one. Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it? And just making sure that people come together in person. If that's not the norm day to day, can we bring people together to welcome? I saw something on LinkedIn today where someone had started a new opportunity, and all their new starters for that organization in Europe had come together in Amsterdam, and they'd been on a boat and they'd had dinner, and it looked really great. I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. We might not all have the money to do that, but what does the equivalent look like for us? How do we bring people together, even if it's new starters all at the same time in 1 month, and just kind of really get people started well? That's all I got for you. I hope that's helpful though. And really just encouraging you to reimagine. If you want to come down to the Sterling stand, we're just kind of down that way. It's E36. We've got the Hiring Reimagined report, but I pulled some stats from there. There's a whole lot more in there, especially thinking outside of the UK and internationally. So it's a digital resource. It'd be very easy for us to just link you to it.